Welcome back, all you hooligans, to episode 6 of the Limit Breakers podcast. I'm particularly excited about this episode because it's quite rare we're actually all talking about a game that we're playing concurrently, and even more rare that we're talking about a game that we're all playing together competitively. So, in this episode, we'll be talking about our first impressions of the new Blizzard game Overwatch, what we think so far, and where we see it going in the future. Welcome, guys, to episode 6 of the Limit Breakers podcast. Welcome one, welcome all to another installment of the Limit Breakers podcast. It is just Justin and I today. We're just a two-man crew. Hopefully that's still entertaining enough for you. Before we get into talking about Overwatch, which is going to be the bulk of our episode, Justin, how you doing? How's life? What's going on?
I'm good. I'm kind of upset that Steve's not here to give us a hard time, but looking forward to having a lot to say about Overwatch.
Deep down, do you feel like you're actually going to be able to get more in and more said today with Steve not always criticizing you, or are you really genuinely sad that he's not here?
Oh, I'm gonna get it in. All right.
Well, I won't ask you more about what that means, but I'll just take it at face value. What's going on, guys? It's been an exciting week, as I mentioned in the opening, because we've done a couple episodes so far about games we all really love, a couple episodes about genres we really love, but we actually haven't done one besides a little bit of the Smash Brothers episode about a game that we're actually all playing currently, so we can really talk in depth about our current feelings, have something fresh in mind when we're discussing it. This is going to be the first case of that, and it is a shame that Steve can't be here, but I'm actually really excited to talk to Justin about this because of all the people I've played competitive games with, I guess, over the course of my gaming history, Justin, would you say you and I are probably the least frequent pair in regard to that?
Yeah, I think for sure. I played very few FPS games. I'm kind of limited to Call of Duty, like Modern Warfare 2, and a couple other ones that are similar to that, but nothing too extensive.
So I'm looking forward to sort of broing down with you here, talking a little bit about what you've thought so far. I have some pretty strong opinions, but as we always do when we start out, why don't we start off talking about what we've been playing? Do you want me to go first, or you want to dive right into your gaming exploits?
Well, for me, I've just been playing Overwatch, which I'll be talking about quite extensively over the next however long we're talking. So I'll let you take over and talk about some gaming news and what you've been playing.
Well, isn't that just quite appropriate for this episode then? That you're Overwatch all the time. We will preface this by saying this is going to be a mini episode. What a mini episode entails exactly, we're not going to really be sticklers about. I'm going to say just arbitrarily that most of our episodes that go less than about 40 minutes, we'll probably call mini episodes just for the sake of being able to brand them that way. Our longer content, roughly an hour or so will be our full episodes, but this will be a mini episode because A, we're a two-man crew today, but also just because we really just wanted to get our first opinions about Overwatch out now, but we'll have more to say about it in the future. As far as what I've been playing, I did beat Donkey Kong Country for the 3DS. Really fun game. I didn't come anywhere close to actually 100%ing it. I'm not actually sure exactly what my final percentage was, but I just wanted to beat it, as I mentioned last time, as a palate cleanser, because it's the kind of game where in between long RPGs or really involved games, it's kind of fun every now and then just to play a shorter, more succinct, more kind of laid-back game. So beating that kind of got me in the mood to play some longer games. And after I beat that, I immediately started Tactics Ogre, subtitled Let Us Cling Together, for the PSP. Now that is sort of a strategy game in the ilk of Final Fantasy Tactics or something along those lines. I own it for PlayStation 1 and have played it many a time, but never actually beaten it. So I'm going to dive into that. Justin, hopefully you'll be honored to know that I created a character in that game of your namesake. So
you better be the most highest level character in the game at this point.
Well, in that game, if you die a certain number of times, you can be permanently dead. So if you're wiped out for all eternity, I'll let you know. But as of right now, you're still kicking.
That's good.
There is a bit of news that I thought you'd be kind of excited to hear about. I'm sure you've already heard, but I feel like it'd be particularly interesting to discuss with you, and that's the announcement of Final Fantasy XII being remastered in HD and re-released. Now, this is something I know that's been rumored for a long time, and I guess after 10 was done, people started to talk about other PS2 Final Fantasies, but have you heard this news, and if so, what do you think?
I have heard this news. I'm very excited about it. It may compel me to finally just get a new console to actually play the remastered version of it. This is probably one of my favorite Final Fantasies, and I really like. It was one of the first times where you kind of got the experience of being able to kind of customize your attacks and your spells, and really making the game more efficient. You had the ability to run away from fights and things like that, which, as long as the Final Fantasy games are, it's kind of nice to be able to explore on your own without getting trapped into like 1,000 battles trying to just roam around and accomplishing, a quest or a particular thing that you're trying to do, and getting sidetracked with that kind of thing. I also really love the bounty hunts in that game, and I feel like it was a really good side quest for them to have created, and it kind of, having these little mini storylines built in just was a really nice finesse. I feel like a lot of times the side quests are really more for like equipment and armor and things like that, but this actually was a little bit different, and I was kind of excited for that.
Yeah, I largely agree with almost everything you said, and I can honestly say that talking with you in passing about the game the last couple years has made me sort of more interested in revisiting it. It's one of the Final Fantasies I really enjoyed but never beat, and I think the HD version is going to give me a good reason to dive back in and finally beat that game. I know the HD remaster of 10 I thought was terrific. It looked really excellent for a PS2 game. The remastered soundtrack was terrific. I know some people are kind of cynical about them re-releasing these games, but for me, it's just a prettier, more complete way to play these old games that I want to replay anyway, so I'm actually pretty pumped about it. But when that comes out, I'm sure we'll both be getting in and talking a bit about it. But just good news in general. So now to dive into the meat of the episode, which is our first impressions of the game Overwatch. Now, we don't want to belabor the actual history of the game because we want to talk more about our actual impressions, but just to give you a sense of what it is and kind of the genesis of it, and for people who might not know that much about the game, it is a first-person shooter made by Blizzard that apparently started its development after the game Titan. I don't know if you ever heard about that, but there was a game in development for like 7 years for Blizzard called Titan that was going to be its next big game-changing franchise. And all of a sudden, it kind of just spiraled downhill and never ended up getting made after all this hubbub about it and all these resources being committed to it. But apparently, after the game Titan, or codename Titan, went downhill, they created a smaller team out of that development team that ended up being the Overwatch developers. Essentially, what they set out to do was make an FPS game that had some MOBA elements, because MOBAs have been so popular recently. That was first and foremost a team-based game. So, whereas you have a lot of these FPSs like Call of Duty, Battlefield, that are really just, they're obviously team-based, but first and foremost, they're kind of these deathmatch-heavy, stat-heavy, KD-heavy shooters where teamwork's obviously important, but most people are playing for their own numbers, for their own goals, for their own ends. They wanted to create a game that felt a lot like MOBAs in that teamwork was the first and foremost important thing. You literally couldn't win unless you played well as a team. And they wanted to give kind of a fresh facelift to the FPS genre, which, I mean, we're going to talk about whether or not we think they did, but for the most part, they really just wanted to, to bring what we've now considered the Blizzard feel and the Blizzard look into the FPS genre. Apparently, they kept a couple things from that Project Titan game, a couple of the maps, a couple of the story bits. So, in a sense, they kind of repurposed things they already had for Overwatch. But for the most part, it's a really original property. I guess without saying too much more about it, we can start to talk about exactly how that's translated to the actual user base. Now, do you remember exactly when we got the game? I know we all got the game the same day. Was it like 10 or so days ago?
I would say it was actually Memorial Day weekend or around that time, and so we've been playing it for about a week and a half, 2 weeks at this point, and it was, as you may know, it was released on May 24th, so it's pretty new to most people at this point. So we're all kind of on an even keel. There's not really, I mean, there are players that kind of excel because if you played FPS games before, you will naturally be good at this game, as long as you're able to work well as a team, like you were saying. So it's very much in an exploratory phase, and that's kind of what I like about it right now. You're going into it. It's not like your Call of Duty games or other FPS franchises where you're going in and you can maybe play like the story mode and then jump into like multiplayer and just get completely annihilated. It's very refreshing, and even no matter what your skill level in this game, you always gain experience and can get leveled up, and I kind of like that. I like, you might have a bad performance, but you'll still get some experience. If you do better, you'll get more, but there's always a chance to move up. So it's not like it's not like you're always lagging behind your friends. So I kind of like that element of it.
I think it's an important frame of reference to mention to give listeners a sense of what games we've played competitively before Overwatch, to give them a sense of what kind of gamers we are and kind of where we're coming at it from. Now, I made a list here of games that I'd say I played, pseudo competitively. I don't competitively can be kind of a tricky term, but I guess just in the sense that I played these games with a sincere desire to win, where winning and, creating an impressive resume or statistical profile were an important part of the game to me. It isn't like you play GoldenEye or Perfect Dark with friends and kind of, no one really remembers your stats an hour after you're done playing. These are games where you actively tried to improve, and getting better and winning at the game was like a huge part of it to you. So my list, at least of what I jotted down here, included Dota, Dota 2, Super Smash Brothers, Warcraft 3, this game Shadowbane that was an MMO that really was kind of like a flash in the pan, but I did play. And then Worms Armageddon is a real throwback to like early PC fun that we all did together. But those are kind of the games that I played with a sincere interest in improving and actually like building my own skill level and really wanted to test myself against other people. Is there kind of a list of games you'd say in the same regard, or?
Yeah, I mean, growing up, we played a lot of the same games. So I mean, I would say things like Perfect Dark, GoldenEye for the N64 were big ones. I also played Worms Armageddon, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. I've played. So those are like the main ones that come to mind for me. Where this differs is I feel like I don't know why, but I feel like this game in particular, I feel like I'm actually improving like significantly more than I have in those other games. Now, it could be because in this game, you do have the opportunity, there is a training option to the game, so you can practice shooting moving targets and kind of getting experience on your own while, without having to play in the multiplayer mode. There's also, even when you're in the game, you have a point of reference because you can call up a screen that tells you what the attacks are and what everything does, which is very nice, just to kind of get a sense. If you're not familiar with playing a specific character, you can just really easily see what they're able to do. And I kind of like that. It's very user friendly, and it's good for for new users, or maybe experienced users who are looking to start a new hero and try to get good with someone else.
So yeah, I think that's a perfect transitional point, because you just mentioned a number of things that you've enjoyed about it so far that have sort of made the transition to the game a little bit easier. But before you even get to that point, I'd be interested in asking you maybe a couple of the reasons why Overwatch actually hooked you in the first place, or why you decided to make the leap and play it. I know, as we just mentioned, neither of us have played a real litany of competitive games over the years, or if we did, we were never amongst like the most serious or most hardcore about it. I'd say of my probably top 10 favorite gaming experiences, really only probably Warcraft 3 amongst those competitive games is in that top 10. So by and large, I'm someone who's really enjoyed competitive gaming, but it isn't exactly my hallmark. But obviously, I got Overwatch, I'm playing it. You got Overwatch, you're playing it. Was there sort of a single thing or a couple key things that made you decide to kind of enter this world of pseudo competitive games again, or was it just kind of just felt like it, or anything you can kind of illuminate?
I mean, there's a couple of reasons, and some of them actually kind of didn't pan out the way I expected them to. But I mean, one was obviously the commercials alone just did a really fantastic job of getting me hooked with the mini stories that they had. Having said that, I was very disappointed when I got the game and there was no story mode or campaign mode to play like on your own to kind of get experience before delving into the multiplayer component of the game. I didn't realize that. Maybe that is something they'll flesh out a little bit more with maybe like expansions or patches or things like that. But I felt like they went into creating this backstory for the game, and you don't really get to experience that or explore that. So that was one reason. The other reason was I haven't played very many FPS games in a while. All my friends are playing it now, and I thought it would be a good time to kind of get back into it, give it another shot. One of the main things I like about it is, like I was saying, is that you do get experience no matter what when you're playing a game. So, and you can get leveled up that way. So it's very nice to, even if you're bad, like your friends don't know how good or bad you are. People you're playing on the internet with don't know how good or bad you are based on how many games you could have played. Like the sheer volume of games you could play, you could be level 40 or 50 and be right up there with people who are, professional level. And I kind of like that you're never really lagging behind. It's not like, an MMO where, maybe your friends are level 30 or 40 and you're level like 5 and you're trying to catch up to them and go to the zones they can go to. It's very nice to kind of have that even keel, like I was saying.
So are you basically trying to explain a manner in which pseudo noobs could kind of hide and operate as decent players?
In a sense, but I mean, also, I mean, at a certain point, if you play a sure enough volume of games, hopefully you would get to a decent level anyway. So I do kind of like that. They're still forcing you to get experience, and maybe you're not going to be the best of the game, but you're still not going to be a complete noob. Like you might be somewhere in between, hopefully.
I'm really glad that you mentioned those advertisements because, ironically enough, I haven't seen many of them, but a lot of people mention how much they like them, and I've actually even had friends that either haven't got the game or have no interest in getting the game that even they said they really like those mini videos. So I guess I'll have to check them out because a lot of people recommend them. I have seen the television commercials, but I know there was like some short individual character videos that set up like sort of the storyline of the characters.
Yeah, there were like 4 or 5 videos, and I think they total around like between a half hour and 45 minutes long, and just little vignettes with some of the different heroes, and I kind of like that. I mean, even when you open the game for the first time, and I believe you see Winston talking to you, one of the heroes in the game, and so I kind of expected there would be kind of more exploration of that, and there just wasn't. But like I said, hopefully that's a route they go down in the future. But if not, that's not really what the game was designed to be anyway. The game kind of like you said, takes those MOBA elements and the team-based elements and takes like the different heroes that you have, and they all have different strengths and weaknesses. You really have to rely on your teammates in that game. Like you can't be the person that's getting 50, 60 kills a game, or you can, but it really depends on the positioning of your team and how well they act with you.
Yeah, I mean, not to toot our own horn, but in all honesty, a huge part of the reason I'm playing Overwatch right now and really kind of going down this road again is after doing the last episode, not the last episode, but 2 episodes ago, our MOBA episode and our esports episode, which you sat on the sidelines for, understandably, because I know MOBAs aren't amongst your favorite genres, but doing that episode, especially with those guys, and even talking to you all the time, really made me remember how much I missed really doing anything cooperatively and team-based with you guys. Gaming specifically in this case, but just anything, just a really fun thing to do with your friends that getting away from it, you kind of realize how much you miss it, talking about Dota and talking about Warcraft and just reliving those old memories of some of our best wins and best defeats. I really kind of wanted to get back into something we could all do competitively together again, and Overwatch just kind of happened to come at the perfect time for that. Now, on top of a desire just to do anything together, as you mentioned, the MOBA elements of the game and the fact that it really is a team-first game really sold me. If you guys had wanted to play just a straight-up conventional FPS game together, I probably would have gone for it, but Overwatch being the way it is with these elements is definitely way more in my style. The fact that it has a really unique graphical style that is very Blizzard, that feels kind of fun and fresh and lighthearted instead of these ultra gritty, ultra realistic, war games, because that's kind of, I know some people like that, but to me it's kind of played out. All these things just kind of added up to, on top of the fact that I was really in the mood for a game like this, it also had a bunch of elements that were right up my alley as compared to most competitive multiplayer games. So it was kind of a perfect storm, perfect timing type situation to add up to a game that we're obviously now all playing together. Now, we've talked a little bit about kind of our own history, why we're playing this, the fact that we are playing this now. Let's talk a little bit about our actual sort of in-depth opinions of the game thus far. You've touched a little bit about what you think. I've touched a little bit about what I think, but on the whole, would you say kind of broadly the game's been less fun than you expected, about what you expected, or more fun? Or is it kind of hard to brand it?
I mean, it's been a little bit of a mix of both. I when I first started playing, like I said, I'm not very good at FPS games, so I wasn't sure how I was going to feel about it. Initially I felt good because I was pretty much even. Like everybody didn't really know what they were doing. It's a brand new game that just came out, so you kind of have an equal advantage with everybody else. And so I kind of like that. For a little while, I mean, I feel like I've gone through the whole gamut of emotions with this game in the last week or two. I've gone from that to just seeing other people get 20, 30 eliminations in the game and, being player of the game all the time, whereas I've only done that once or twice.
I'm calling shenanigans on a 30 elimination game, but
Well, not for myself. I meant play of the game. So going from that to now actually like getting to a point where I'm starting to get some semblance of finesse over particular heroes. I'm still not great at them, but definitely better than I was 2 weeks ago when I started. So yeah, but right now I'm kind of on the up and up and hoping, I'm getting more out of it than I thought I would when I first bought it.
Yeah, I've been telling you because one of the sort of automatically fun things of playing a game like this is on top of just playing together, we obviously play on a team together. We set up microphones. We're all talking during the game, and just that banter and that trash talk and that team strategy is like half the fun for sure. And while we've been talking while playing, it's been really cool for me to hear that you've been enjoying the game because obviously like it's one thing to all want to give this a go together and play together, but my sincere hope is that everyone's actually having fun while we're doing it. I don't want it to just be something people feel compelled to do, and to hear that you have actually enjoyed it makes me feel a little bit more optimistic about it.
And I think that's another great thing about it too is so we've all been playing on the same team. There's not really like a versus mode where I could really particularly play against you, I don't think. We've all been playing on the same team, so it's good to get that feedback. It's not really, I mean, we are trash talking each other to a certain extent, but at the same time we're also trying to help each other so we can successfully beat the missions in the levels. And it is nice to be able to in the game turn on and off voice chat, so when you are playing with other people, if they're strangers and you don't really feel like listening to it because some people just kind of ramble on and on or get upset about everything, it's nice to just be able to toggle that on and off in the game and just kind of choose to listen when you want to.
Yeah, pro tip or noob tip to all players of Overwatch or any other game: do not leave your microphone on open mic in a regular team game, or else your teammates will despise you. I've found that out one too many times with forgetting to turn it back to push to talk, and that's resulted in some pretty funny chat messages. But for me, I've actually been, I should say, incredibly surprised by how much fun I've had. I was really in the mood to play a game with you guys competitively again. I was really kind of anxious and excited about playing this game. But by and large, I've never been that big of a shooters fan. So I expected to have fun playing this, but not have it really be a mini obsession. And so far, it has become a mini obsession for me. I think we're, as you mentioned, something like, I don't know, 2 weeks or so in since we bought the game or whatnot. I'd say I've probably played about an hour and a half on average per day, which is a fair amount of time for me. That's about what total amount of time I spend gaming, in a given day on most days, periods. And most of my time's been going towards Overwatch. But there's just something about the beauty of the execution of the way this game's laid out, where there aren't as many characters as I'd like, there aren't as many game modes as I'd like, there aren't as many maps as I'd like, and yet I've played, I think, 110 games at this point, and it never really feels stale to me. I don't know if you've had the same. Yeah, I think I've played a bit more than you so far, so I really kind of expected when I saw the final hero list, realized there was only a couple game modes. Essentially there's a sort of a capture the hill type mode where both teams are trying to capture one spot. Then there's game modes where one team's defending a certain spot or this moving payload / car. The other team's trying to capture it. There's not a whole lot of variety to the gameplay, but the game allows for so much creativity, so much strategy, and the games can really change moment to moment so much that despite the fact that you might be playing the same game mode, the same teammates, playing the same characters, 10 games in a row, it always somehow manages to feel fresh, feel fun. It's really, really surprised me that a game that a year ago, if you would have mentioned, this first person shooter with blah, 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 and laid all the kind of the breakdown of Overwatch out to me, it probably wouldn't have stood out as something I'd really be crazy about. But so far, I've really, really enjoyed it. Has it felt stale to you at all? Or are you still finding each game sort of exciting?
I feel like the fantastic thing about the game is its simplicity. And like I was talking about a week or two ago on the podcast when I was playing, Mario, is that kind of simple element gives it a lot of replayability. There's a lot of different things that can happen. You have a million different heroes that you can try, and it's up to you how little or how much time you want to spend getting good with one or the other. Even in the midst of the game, you're able to change heroes, which is a really nice thing. because if your team's not very well balanced, you have the ability to do that, and not a lot of games kind of offer that. So that's a really cool thing. Even though it doesn't have many levels right now, I definitely foresee them probably adding more levels in the future. But the levels are pretty expansive, and right now I don't want too many levels because it kind of gives you a chance to get familiar with these levels and figure out some good positioning spots, so that you can hopefully increase your kill count in the game. So right now it's very exploratory. There's also for mobile gamers, there's things that you can unlock, which I think people will appreciate. There's a shop that you can buy some upgrades or tags or avatars and things like that, and voice lines. So it's kind of cool if you're into that kind of thing. And yeah, I'm just kind of amazed by how its simplicity is like what lures people into the game.
Yeah, the two things you mentioned I think are really both very interesting. One is sort of this skins, sprays, this essentially not DLC, but this additional sort of content you can unlock in the game. I really like the way they've done it because it is sort of exciting when you level up. You get these loot boxes you can open that can give you character skins, character sprays, character voice lines, and it has no pay to win element. There's no element where if you pay real money, you're really getting any sort of leg up on anyone else. You get some cool looking stuff, and you can, if you want to spend the money and invest that way, make your characters look cool, have some different animations and things like that. But there's no aspect that actually tries to force you to spend more money than your initial investment just to get a leg up, which I know is like a worrying trend in a lot of games. And the fact that this game forewent that is awesome. Also, the fact that you mentioned that you can change heroes during the game, I think is a really important element because the games can be certain MOBAs, at least in my personal experience, Dota and Dota 2 being chief among them. They're the kind of games where you kind of, one team gets on a roll and the momentum is just so strong, they level so quickly, everything goes downhill so fast that the opposing team never really has any actual chance to come back. You kind of know the game's over pretty early on, and from that moment on, it's just not that fun. But Overwatch, because of how quick you respawn, because of the fact you can change heroes during the game, you never truly feel like you have no chance to win. Like, I've seen teams turn around some pretty improbable games already, and the fact that you're able to change heroes on the fly, completely reorganize your team strategy, on the go, really does add an element where until that very last second ticks down, you never really feel like you have no hope. I mean, I've certainly been in some games that were one-sided, but that had more to do with like the people's skill level than being, stuck in one role with the hero you chose initially or something like that. And that actually leads into another point is I so far have actually found the matchmaking in the game to be pretty good. I know we've played a handful of games together. I played a handful of games with myself. And like I said, there have been some one-sided games, but for the most part, teams have been pretty even. There's been a lot of really competitive games. I know matchmaking is a really tough aspect of launching competitive games like this. And would you say overall you found games pretty evenly matched thus far?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very pleased with the overall competitiveness of the game. I don't feel like there's any game that I've played that I've really felt like we have no chance of winning from the get-go. I mean, there are games, like you said, where people skill level exceeds your own, so like sometimes it's going to happen, but that's just the nature of what games you played previous to Overwatch. I also kind of like that you can play versus AI as well, so where your team is all like actual real people, and then the other team is just the computer, and that's kind of nice just as a way to practice against easy, medium, or hard difficulty. So if you feel like you're not up to snuff, it's another way to practice and just kind of play with other people of like-mindedness who maybe feel the same way as you, and before you go into playing a real game against another team.
Yeah, for the most part, it's been really cool, and it can't really be overstated how nice it's been to play a competitive online game again where the other people you're playing with and the community at large really hasn't been that dickish so far. I know playing Dota and Dota 2, it seemed half the time like people's first priority was just cussing out teammates, trolling the opponent, worrying about nothing but themselves and their own stats. And it was a very toxic environment, I think is the way Andrew described it. It's been really nice so far in Overwatch. I've had a couple people that were kind of overly pushy or rude, but for the most part, I'd say 90% of players either don't talk much at all or if they do, they're very polite, very supportive, and just that environment as a whole really kind of engenders you wanting to play even more.
Yeah, I mean that was a really surprising thing for me. I think playing this game is because it's such a team-based game. I kind of expected people to be typing more, but at the same time, I can kind of see where maybe you wouldn't, because you can't really be dedicating time to type things. So if you're not in voice chat, I mean, you're really costing yourself some reaction time by typing responses. Now it is nice because there are pre-programmed keys to say, like, if you need healing or things like that, or get to the checkpoint, whatever it might be. And so that makes things a little bit easier. But if you don't have the headset, it depends on depending on your skill level, you're either helping or hurting your team, I think.
Yeah, those pre-programmed sort of social communication tools are kind of funny because they can be really helpful, but sometimes people, I think, either press the wrong button or they're just not really aware of what's going on in the game, so they sort of press something that makes no sense in context. Like, I play supports a lot. I play, as we'll mention in a minute, our favorite characters. I play Mercy and Lucio a lot, and obviously people telling you they need healing is a pretty important thing. But people will literally see me get like wiped out and die, and like 2 seconds after I die, they'll just start spamming "I need healing" as if I can do anything about it. Kind of just want to say, like, stop pressing that. Obviously, I'm dead, you moron. But there's no pre-programmed button to say that, so that's not really possible. Now, without further ado, maybe we can just talk, as I just mentioned, about who our favorite characters have been so far. Maybe do 3 each, because there's 21 characters in the game right now. I actually haven't played all of them in actual group real games. I think I've played roughly half, but I have played them all in some form of training or AI games. They feel I'd say the balance is very good, and the diversity of the characters is very good, in my opinion. So it really feels vastly different playing one character to the next, especially in different roles. It doesn't just feel like the same exact game, the same exact play style with a different appearance. It really does feel distinct. So you want to start off with one of your favorites?
Well, I was going to ask you, why don't you just familiarize some of the listeners with the 4 different classes of heroes that exist in the game?
Yeah, I think as is similar in games like Team Fortress, there's 4 basic character roles, which is offense or assault, which is basically heroes whose first and foremost goal is just to do damage and kill the opponent. There's defensive heroes, which first and foremost are good at defending their base, creating choke points, stopping enemy movement, pushing the enemy back. There's tanks, which are really good at absorbing damage and actually holding enemy fire off. Then there's support, which, as the name implies, are most important at supporting their own team, healing, buffing, increasing damage, reviving, things along those lines. So I'd say as a whole, as will be evidenced by my heroes, I'm more of a support and defense guy. I know you kind of go the opposite direction. You want to start off with one of your favorites?
Sure. So one of the ones that I've been playing quite a bit is Diva. This character, if you haven't played the game before, is she's a female character who is in a sort of mech robot suit. She has a fair amount of HP. She has about 500 HP, which is one of the higher amounts in the game starting out. One thing I do like about this game and this character in particular is that they have really an infinite amount of ammunition. You're not running around this game with any of the characters picking up casings or other rounds of ammunition. So that's a really nice thing. I mean, there are other characters where you will run out and have to reload, so there is time for that, but this character, at least in that form, does not have to reload. Now, once this character, if the mech suit gets destroyed, Diva will actually exit the machine, and she has hit points of her own. In that form, she does have to reload. She does have a limited amount of ammunition. But this character is really nice because this is kind of the character that you can hit people from far away, so you do have some range, but at the same time, this is kind of the hero that you want to play like where you're really in the other person's face. You have the ability to put up a shield and temporarily block attacks. You have a kind of speed boost hovering button that you can use, and so I mean it's really good for tanking, and I would highly recommend using this character if that's your thing. Another cool thing is that the character has as you'll find out, all the characters have basically ultimate attacks, and hers is to summon an additional mech suit when hers gets destroyed, and she can also exit and explode the one that she had and kill several characters from a distance. So that's a very nice thing that I like about her. She has a lot of variety and of attacks, and I think she's a really well versified character. Two other characters I like are Bastion, who is a kind of robot warrior who has the ability to turn into a turret gun. He kind of also runs around on his own, obviously, and can shoot, but he has a more limited amount of ammunition in that mode. But if you can get in a good position, this hero is really good from getting in a good position, kind of sitting back, far back in the level, and just being able to take people out from a distance, stopping people, kind of dead in their tracks. So that's one of my other characters I've been playing a lot. And then the other one I haven't been playing as much, but it's Farah, and this character has the ability to fly, which is a really nice thing because it's very hard to hit a moving target that's flying around. But she's kind of another tank hero that kind of is good at just being evasive and at the same time having pretty powerful attacks.
Well, I believe fair is assault, actually. But I know what you meant. Yes. I know what you meant. Yeah, it's kind of, it works out well. Obviously, Justin and I have been playing together, and he kind of tends more towards the offensive heroes. I myself, I'm not exactly sure why it is, but in almost every team-based game, I've always kind of wanted to be the support. I think it's probably some like personal, psychological drive I have that I should probably have psychoanalyzed, but for some reason, I've always liked playing the support in these games. I think part of it's because no one else seems to really want to, and rather than force someone to do it, I kind of just like taking that upon myself and playing that role. But of that ilk, I'd say Mercy's been my favorite character in that regard. She's kind of the textbook healer of the game. She has the strongest heal in the game. She has a damage boost, and then her ultimate resurrects anyone in your vicinity that is dead. So it's kind of the best, like, I wouldn't say the best support, but it's the most textbook kind of defensive alt in the game, I'd call it. She's been a lot of fun. I also really like Soldier 76 in May. Soldier 76 is an offensive hero, and even though I'm not that good with the actual shooting aspect of shooters, I'm getting better. It sounds kind of funny to say I'm not good at shooting in an FPS game, but he's just a really balanced hero that has his actual gun and his missiles he launches are really versatile. He has a heal that's like an AoE little healing aura, which helps him survive a lot. And then his ult is kind of an auto-targeting type mechanism, which for me, as I'm getting better at the shooting aspect, really helps me. And also just, if you can flank people and set up in the right position to use his ult, he really can be pretty effective. So I've enjoyed him a lot. And then May's a defensive hero who's all about positioning and really messing with the opponent. Her ult is this giant freeze aura, which can really mess people up if you time it right. She can also put up ice balls to block enemy movement, and I've certainly put up some bad ones that have been pretty cringeworthy, but if you land one correctly and really force the enemy to go into a certain spot or really cut off like a certain path of escape, she can be a really rewarding, really useful hero. So those are my three favorites. I've enjoyed playing some others, but those are probably my three best heroes right now, and we're probably going to settle into roles over time, but we'll obviously also keep experimenting.
Yeah, and I mean, just a couple other quick mentions, but not heroes that I've really played. But you do have other heroes, like Widowmaker and McCree, which are more like sharpshooting, sniping heroes. And then I forgot to mention that Bastion actually has self-healing. But you can really quickly, just from the descriptions that we've kind of given you, you get a sense of just really the range of these characters and how each one has certain strengths and weaknesses that play well in a team setting. For instance, when like Bastion's self-healing, he cannot attack. That leaves him very vulnerable to be killed. Same thing with other characters. They each have their flaws. And I think that's what makes the game great is, you need that protection from your other teammates, and you need all these variety of skill sets to be able to excel at the game and win your missions.
Yeah, it's a game where synergy is everything, where every single hero has a specific role that they fulfill, really kind of adds to the team in a very particular way that no matter who you're playing, you really feel like you can contribute. But not only that, there is a bit of creativity that comes in where it's not like, okay, I'm playing XYZ, call it, Diva, for instance. Diva is classified as a tank, but like you mentioned, with a skilled player, you can really approach her a couple different ways. You can be really in their face and be aggressive and sort of flank people, push people back. Her ult is a really good ult for clearing rooms and doing a lot of damage. She has a bit of survivability, so you can sort of just play a traditional tank role. You have characters that fit very specific roles, but with a bit of creativity and a bit of quick thinking, you can still mix it up and kind of surprise people with how you play. So there's room to play very traditionally, but there's also room to kind of make things up as you go and find new stuff out as you're playing. Now, I know you mentioned earlier the idea of you being okay with like not releasing too much content too quickly to sort of settle into what's already there. But kind of how do you see the future of the game unfolding as far as how do you see your own future unfolding in terms of is this a game you could see yourself playing for quite some time down the road? And also, how do you think Blizzard's gonna kind of move forward in terms of the rate at which they're gonna add things, the rate at which the game's gonna grow or kind of shrink? Personally, I've had so much fun that I could easily see myself playing this for quite some time. It's hard to say what any of us will be doing a couple years from now or something like that, but it's a game I could see myself really enjoying for at least the near future and probably the foreseeable future, especially if you guys are still playing. And I personally, I think the game is pretty balanced right now, but I will be really looking forward to those first new heroes and new maps just so that the game never quite settles into feeling stale.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I feel pretty much the same way. I think the two biggest things I want to see are, like you said, new levels. But right now, I'm comfortable with getting used to the levels that are available. And I think, if not released for a while, new ones aren't released for a while, I think that's okay. The other thing that I'm hoping that they do is that they add some maybe different missions. And I'm not sure what they would add per se, but just instead of having the same like 2 or 3 like missions all the time, or just having the ability to pick if you want to be on offense or defense for a game. That's one thing about the game right now where you're kind of randomly assigned to which side you're going to be on. Are you protecting a payload? Are you trying to stop a payload? It kind of limits. It's random, but I wish kind of there was more control over that, because some games it's nice to have to play different advantages in the levels.
I think it was a really brave choice by them to make a shooter with no conventional deathmatch mode, which is straight up kills versus kills, because obviously that's the first thing that comes to mind for any of us when we think about shooters. But I can honestly say I'm kind of glad they didn't do that, because it really does get you out of that individual, all for one, or not, well, I guess the opposite of all for one mindset where everyone's just out to get their own stats and, get their own kills. I like the fact that all the game modes are so cooperative. But I absolutely agree. It would be cool to see a couple new ones introduced just because these do feel diverse right now, but there are only a handful. And, a couple hundred games in, those might start to feel a little bit dated. But I guess we'll see how it unfolds. I know the one thing they are going to do really soon, I think they mentioned by the end of June actually, is introduce competitive play, which right now you can kind of do play against the AI or just what's called quick play. But soon they'll have something called competitive play, which is essentially quick play, except you kind of play in a ranked ladder type setup where you win, you move up a competitive ladder, you play against people that are of higher rank. You lose, you actually go back down the ladder, play against people of lower rank. So the goal will be within a certain season, like a 3 or 4 month span, to see who can basically be, a top ranked team, top ranked individuals, etc. And then you'll move up and down according to your play, which, we're already trying to play somewhat competitively. So I'm sure when that opens up, we'll probably give that a try, but I'll be interested to see how that affects the dynamics of the game.
Yeah, I mean, if that's true, I think that could be a very interesting element to the game. Yeah, I mean, there's really a lot of avenues they could go down with this. I mean, you have so many other games like this that you could borrow elements from, whether it be tournament style deathmatch, like you were saying, adding the story mode in, adding extra heroes, adding levels. I mean, there's so many things to just mix up the replayability of this game. But I think right now it's a very refreshing game to games of this genre, and I'm very curious to see how many people jump on the bandwagon and start trying to give this a go.
I think they quoted the number of 7 million individual user accounts so far, which is a pretty damn impressive start. I don't know exact player bases by memory, but I know this is like one of the most played games in the world right now. So if they can gain momentum or even keep it kind of about where it is, it should remain a pretty popular game for quite some time. I will say my 2 big things. I know they said the first 2 instances of character balancing are going to be nerfing McCree and buffing Diva. But I will say McCree definitely needs to be nerfed because his stupid fan, the hammer, where he basically fires all the rounds he has left at once, absolutely melts tanks. And playing Winston and Reinhardt when I do occasionally, that's so friggin' annoying to play. So please, Blizzard, get that McCree nerf out as soon as possible. Also, I know Bastion can be countered pretty easily. I know someone out there is going to listen to this and say, like, you noob, he's stationary, just flank him, blah, 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 play tracer. But I think Bastion needs to be nerfed. I think his turret, obviously he's stationary, but his turret's insanely powerful. His ultimate, which is like that mini tank form, is pretty mobile, incredibly hard to kill, and his missiles or grenades or whatever they are, powerful as hell. I just think a slight damage nerf or a slight survivability nerf on him has to come. Or maybe I'm just biased because I keep getting blown off the screen by grenades, but he just pisses me off, and I feel like those are the two most egregious cases of balancing necessity so far. But for the most part, they've done a really great job. Anything that's really stuck out to you thus far? Is it sort of just a mixed bag?
Well, I will say being a noob at the game, that I have gotten killed as Bastion a fair amount of times. So, but I can see your point about nerfing some of his abilities and kind of damage capping him. Again, he does have a really high ammunition. Like I think he has like 300 like bullets per round. So it's very high. But at the same time, I mean, like I said, like when he's in turret mode, like he's stationary, it's he does have vulnerability, but it can be, I guess, less than some of the other heroes in the game.
Don't let Justin's opinion there sway you, Blizzard. Make sure you get that Bastion nerf going quick before I punch my monitor. I think it'd be kind of apt right now to sort of sum up our overall opinions as sort of a little sign off here. I think personally, Overwatch to me is a resounding success so far. It's an FPS game that I myself, as a non-FPS fan, am kind of in love with right now. Maybe my opinion will be different in a couple of months, but it's just a really fun game. It's a fun game to play with you guys. It's still a fun game to play with random people online just because each game feels so fresh. The heroes really feel diverse. The game's really balanced. The player base, for the most part, doesn't bitch and whine about everything. And you really never feel like you're out of the game. You might lose, you might win, but it's not the kind of case where 30 seconds in, you have no chance. You can change heroes. The ultimates are all powerful enough that you can really turn the game on its head like that. Thus far, it's not a flawless game to me at all, but it's as much as I could have expected it to be and a little bit more. And hopefully I'm still saying that, I'm sure as we're doing new episodes, we'll kind of touch on our experience playing this, but I'm really hoping I'm still having this much fun in a couple months.
Yeah, I mean, I feel exactly the same way, and so like we said, or maybe we didn't say it, but we're playing this game for the PC. We would love it if our listeners out there would share their experiences playing it on maybe Xbox One or PS4, and just kind of giving us a comparison between maybe how that feels versus like the PC. And I would also like to, if you're going to our social media pages, I would encourage you to post maybe some of your tags for the game so we could actually play on a team with you and experience the game with you and share some thoughts and common ground about the game.
Yeah, maybe one of the rewards in reference to our YouTube giveaway, we'll be giving out our gamer tags. I don't want to give that away too quickly because that's valuable information. But
I was hoping they would give theirs out on the social media page. I never said I was going to give mine out.
Okay, well, I'm just trying to entice listeners with that. But yeah, I think as a whole, we've had a ton of fun playing Overwatch so far, and we will keep you updated as we continue to play it. A good mention there about the PC aspect because obviously that can change your opinion and your experience with the game very much. But it was nice to get back into a PC game. It kind of made sense for all of us, so we went that direction. As we usually end, we're going to end with some shout-outs here. Justin, I'll give you the floor first if you have any. If you don't, I've got a couple I want to do, but I want to be a gracious host and ask you if you want to say anything to anybody.
I would like to give a shout-out to Steve, who actually couldn't be here for this episode, and say you better be here for the next episode to give us some advanced strategies on playing Overwatch, and I'll throw it back to you.
Well, that was quite touching. Steve, we miss you, or at least Justin does. My own opinion is undisclosed. 3 shout-outs real quick. The first one, shout out to Temu, who can be found at twitch.tv/Temu. Temu is actually proof to me that it is possible to be a normal, cute female and actually enjoy video games. I don't want to start a Gamergate issue here with debating gender and gaming, etc., but you do find a lot online, sort of people being pulled into question of, is this gamer girl really into gaming? Is this girl's nerdy hobbies exaggerated just because they know it'll be popular, blah, blah, blah. But Temu is a Twitch streamer, plays primarily WoW and Counter-Strike Global Offensive, who I just find to be really entertaining, really nice to see someone who's genuinely into games, who's also a relatively normal, relatively decent person, female on top of all that, which is somewhat rare online, becoming less rare. But she's just really fun to watch. She's one of the few Twitch streamers I actually follow, so check her out if you're into those games or Twitch streaming. The second, huge shout out to TPR, which stands for the Phoenix Rise. He is a musician who has a YouTube page and a personal page who primarily does gaming covers, and his gaming covers are absolutely incredible. He does a whole series called Melancholy Covers, which is basically, just as the name sounds, sort of down-tempo, slower, more emotional takes on a lot of gaming music. He's done Final Fantasy, Chrono Trigger, the Zelda series, The Last of Us. His covers are just phenomenal. I guess amongst my favorites would be Final Fantasy VII, Final Fantasy X, and I'd say The Last of Us also. But the song The Calm Before the Storm from Final Fantasy X and the Desert Prison song from Final Fantasy VII, both absolutely incredible. Check his stuff out. He can be found at youtube.com/PhoenixRiseMusic. We actually talked to him on Twitter the other day. Awesome guy. Wish him the best of success. Just a really great musician. And then finally, we shouted out previously to another gaming podcast. They actually posted on our Facebook letting us know that they'd actually returned the favor and shouted out to us on their new episode. That just came out tonight. I'm going to listen to it tomorrow, and I'm anxiously awaiting hearing them mention us because I'm a big fan of all of theirs. It's really cool that they did that. So thank you guys for your shout out. Paying it right back to you. Can't wait to listen to the episode. Before we sign off, Justin, want to say any last words? Or
No, I just want to say that, if you have played Overwatch, post some things that maybe we didn't get to talk about in the episode, or some things that maybe are new to us that we didn't even know existed about the game. If you haven't played the game, I highly recommend you check it out for whatever platform you so desire. Yeah, it was a fun episode.
Your comment made me think of old school when Will Ferrell saying maybe something cool we don't even know about yet. So we're not comparing Overwatch to women's underwear, or maybe we are. Who knows? I just kind of spat in the face of my own comment because I said all mini episodes would be roughly 45 minutes or less, and this one isn't going to be. So F you to myself, I guess, about that comment. Guys, this has been the Limit Breakers episode 6, discussing our first impressions of Overwatch. We'll be back soon with more content. Back soon getting into more retro gaming because we've kind of gotten away from that. But thanks as always for listening. For Justin and myself, you guys are awesome. We enjoy doing this. We'll talk to you again soon. Have a good one.
See you next time.